Where's he at? Phantom, you there?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Yo, okay, I think I can hear you okay. Okay, dope. I think we're
Let me know if I need to turn my mic up. I kind of adjusted my settings.
okay. No. I think you're good. I think you're good.
Sounds good.
Awesome. No,
Okay.
no, no. Yeah, man, no, you are Terry Suave. So, man, listen, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on and talking to us, man. So, give me now again, I'm not too familiar with you outside of me knowing that you do some content, right? But
Right.
give me. Let me start off with an introduction, right? So, how long have you been in 357 with YSS so far?
So I've been with YSS for this would be my second season with them. Last season was the first time I was with them.
Okay, okay. Now, uh, where were you before 357? Before you joined
Oh man.
YSS?
Well, when I started the game, I started off being with Pay to Win, or what it became Pay to Win, and I was with them for 2 years.
Oh, you were with Toxic
Um,
and them.
yeah, I was with Toxic.
Oh,
Yeah, the
that's
whole
so
group.
cool. Toxic's a good
I,
dude.
I was there. It was War and End, and they merged together to make Pay to Win.
Okay.
And I was on the War team.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you so now did you mainly I believe with the pay to win, I can't recall now if it was like a disband or whatever happened, but what was the reason you ended up leaving there?
They had a kick list, and I was on it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because the season that we had, it was EIS and Echo, and our allies were EIS. But we had lost our Zone 2 so badly, and Zone 3 was against Echo, and Echo just came in with calves and demolished like all of our morale, like completely. Just people stopped playing. So Pay to Win made a whole kick list, and I was on it because I was only at like I think 7 mil merits at the time. I wasn't full T5 either.
Okay.
So I got put on that kick list. We went to Home Kingdom. The whole drama happened where Toxic tried to zero all of the people in Home Kingdom. Like he
Yeah.
left the KvK completely to focus on us, and we were like, dude, we're just trying to like migrate out, you know. But that all happened. Then I went to server 145 with Sleepy, which is known as Excommunicado, and they still got their alliance going. But I was with them for a season, and then I dropped down to G1 because I had a bunch of work going on. So I was like, well, I can't be that active.
Okay.
And yeah, I was in G1 for the longest time until I saw YSS in my KvK because I was playing with Skin. Forget what server they were, and we were in a KvK, and YSS won the KvK. So I was like, well, I asked Tomato, are you guys going to G2? And he was like, yeah, we are. And I was like, I'm interested in joining. So I ended up joining YSS through that way.
Okay. Now, what made you, I guess, initially go over to YSS as far as how you found yourself there versus, again, I imagine, generally speaking, just any other kingdoms or any other places that might have also been a good fit?
I saw that they had really good Bastion leaders, and that was like my main concern with me and my friend, who we basically go everywhere. The alliances we were in before, the Bastion leaders just sucked. I mean, even in Pay to Win, it was only Toxic filling the Bastions the entire time.
Okay.
So I saw at YSS, they like all of their members were filling it, and I just liked how I saw them fight, and I was like, all right, well, I'll give them a shot, you know. I liked last season's fight too. I feel like we were just cut short on like whatever our builder was doing. I don't know. I don't know. Zone 3, we lost Necro, I think you saw, and then Dragon Zone.
Yeah.
We were about to win Dragon Zone against WB, and everybody thought like, okay, GG's, you know, we won Dragon Zone, but we hadn't kicked out WB yet, and everybody logged off. And then it was like, oh shit, you know, WB logged back in, and they started fighting, and basically that's how we lost Dragon Zone last season.
Okay. So you get in YSS.
Right.
Up until how would you, I guess, again, given that it's only really been one season outside, or I'm sorry, it was two. You said you joined 2 seasons ago. or was
Yeah,
it last season that you came in?
Last season.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you've
last
had
season
one
was my
full
first
season with them so far.
Right.
Okay. So given the one full season you've had with them at the moment, how would you, what would be your assessment so far of how they went into last season and what they got out of last season?
Well, considering they're really new to KvK1, I think they did relatively good. There were a lot of people who just kind of stopped fighting after they reached like, you know, there's a lot of people that reach 12 mo merits and they're like, okay, well, that's the end of the season for me. And we had a lot of people like that, and they're all kicked now, like they're all gone. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens this time. But basically, it's been good. I mean, I like the way they play and their coordination. You know how Dark got brought in and how he does war comms. I like how Dark does war comms, although I've never really experienced all the other alliances and how they do it. So I know people are a bit biased on that. Like, oh, my team is better than Dark, you know.
Yeah. No.
But
I mean, no,
I feel like he does
I know, I
good.
get it. And I think really in retrospect, everyone is somewhat biased in a sense, loosely to their own team, right? They're preferential
Right.
to who
Yeah,
they
you're
play
not gonna
with.
talk
Yeah.
against them.
Like if your situation is going good, it's very easy for people to simply put feel as though my situation is the best. The people I play with are the best. My war leads are the best, right? Now,
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
that's only if you're kind of in your tiny bubble, right? Like you don't really have a lot of maybe experience or knowledge in how other people do it, right? To maybe take away or kind of assess pros and cons, or hey, are there opportunities we have to do things better, etc. So,
Exactly.
now I am going to want to maybe ask a question or two about Dark here in a sec, but I do want to know, coming into this season, clearly to me it felt like the expectation. I guess I'm curious on like how much information and prep was done from 357 and YSS, whether that was by Tomato or others, when it came to going into KvK1. Was there at all an expectation set? Was there any conversations? Was there town halls that happened? Or was it, we just want to be as competitive as we can, and everyone just kind of knew already from the get-go there really wasn't a need to kind of have any conversations about it, and everyone just kind of knew what to expect?
Right. For this KvK, we did have one town hall.
Okay.
The KvK where I joined in, we didn't do a town hall, but basically he sends out a mail and he lets everybody know what they expect out of every player, like merits wise or performance wise. And then what I thought was interesting was last season he collected everybody's resources, like how much resources you have, to see like who's going to resource heal the most and stuff. So I thought that was really interesting.
Okay. Now, as far as
yeah, they prepare.
Okay.
And it's not.
Well, I guess, was there anything specifically said about like KvK1, or just like going in and saying like, look, our aim is for the top KvK, or was it just more of
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah,
what was
they had
that
said
like?
that from the get-go. Well, Tomato just like talked to everyone. I mean, you could DM him, but he said in our server that we're shooting for KvK1. We're gonna be fighting against WB most likely because they were the other top team. And just like mentally, he told everybody mentally prepare, clear your schedule if you have to, call off of work and shit. The typical stuff.
Yeah, that's good. No, man, I love it. I always love when there's some level of like unrealistic expectation or just like funny banter that people are putting out. Like, like make sure to leave your kids, go on vacation for a week, use all your PTO. We get it.
Make sure you quit your job, live in your car.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so you guys get into KvK1. When you saw who you got matched with, and on top of the fact that there were 7 kingdoms there, and I'd love to kind of hear both sides of this, what was your thoughts? What was your view on this, as far as who was included in KvK1, and also the fact that there were 7 kingdoms compared to what maybe a lot of other people thought was going to be 6?
This is for this season, yeah. I don't know. A lot of us were shocked when we saw MFD and Hunt in here. We were not expecting that. That was like the biggest curveball. So that I feel that definitely threw Diplo around like crazy because people were not expecting that team to just be like split off like that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, nobody
I
wants that
definitely thought it would
trash
be
in
wow.
KvK1, so I get it. You can say whatever you want. No one likes those people.
Right.
but on a serious note, do you feel as though, and again, obviously, I don't know how much, and I guess I should ask, how involved are you when it comes to? Because again, I know some CCs are more involved than others on the teams.
Right.
Do you find, are you more of kind of like member status? Do you get kind of tips or insights from leadership? I guess what level of access do you have there?
Yeah, I'm more. I already told Tomato like I didn't want to deal with any like R4 stuff or have to deal with like the big responsibilities. So I'm basically just a normal member is what I wanted when I joined. Because before I led the other alliances I was in G1 and oh my gosh, it's exhausting and I didn't have enough time.
I guess, I mean, it is. Sadly, it's
like
it's
a
too
full-time
much.
job.
So you get in and you see everyone that you get paired with. Now I'm curious, how much impact do you feel really played out when it came to the teams that were formed, as far as the potential for what the KvK could have been? Do you feel as though one of the biggest curveballs that maybe had the biggest level of impact on the teams being formed for the KvK was the fact that MFD and Hunt just got included instead of them just putting in kind of more of whatever the next solid sixth would have been? Or do you feel
Yeah.
like, no, you know what? It's okay that they did, but the teams that were initially set were not as good as they could have been?
I feel like we had a really good team going with IMFS, NTS, and YSS. Like it was pretty good, right versus left, and yeah, like YSS is gonna have to farm, unfortunate, and so is MFD and Hunt. But it's like this map isn't really built for like if like any other outcome would have been terrible. Like when you look at it, and I'm pretty sure they discussed that a lot in the Diplo talks. But what I don't get is like nobody can reach a middle ground for some reason. Like it was either my way or the highway, and I don't understand that mentality personally because if you're leading a kingdom of like a lot of people, you got to take a lot of people's interest in mind and not just maybe a couple people that you're talking to because considering it's an entire like the biggest KvK in the entire game and everybody's looking at it, you want the best outcome, right? And it feels like us going solo was probably the worst outcome.
Okay.
Like now we don't have any allies. So I don't know. The season for me, once I heard we were free for all, I was like, I'm gonna log off and play other games right now. This isn't. It's not really what I wanted to do. Like, because realistically, looking at the map, we're probably gonna fight IMFS in Zone 3. Like that's our only option for PvP when you look at it. Because we got that Gate 4, and then they're gonna build through Gate 3.
Gotcha. So now at this point, you effectively have, again, the teams are decided, right? If we fast forward a little bit, your teams are decided. Again, I actually fall a little bit on the line of similarly, right? Where the fact is that probably the biggest wrench it feels like that was really thrown in this was the situation of MFD and Hunt being put in, forcing basically kind of a 6th and 7th alliance, which, again, traditionally speaking, in KvK1s, we really haven't seen that happen before, where you're in a KvK1 and you end up having this situation where you have kind of this odd number, right? And everyone knows you're going to have two teams. It's just in most cases, Lord Almighty. So you have this situation that is being played out, and you find yourself where, because these two teams have got put into a KvK1 that is not traditional, I'm curious, now we move forward, right? You get to the team situation. From everything I've heard so far, the team situation played out pretty amicably. where everyone kind of got settled, everyone got it figured out, and there really wasn't a lot of there really wasn't a lot of, I guess, back and forth or a lot of issues, if you will, that arose from the teams being sorted. You said you feel like you're okay with the teams. Do you feel like there could have been better teams that were formed, or do you feel like no, this was the best situation, the best case scenario that we were able to get? And I'm talking about if there really wasn't an issue of starting zones, or people didn't have to worry about any of the merit reduction, stuff that was thrown out there, or
Right.
any of people getting zone locked, and it was just, listen, man, everyone could have everyone, is just like, in the best case scenario, everyone agrees that all the kingdoms are going to make it to final zone. No one's going to get zone locked out. Do you feel like the teams that were formed at least were maybe the best that they could have done at the time, given the information and the situation that they have?
Well, I feel like for my ideal thing, it wouldn't have been balanced at all, but it would have gave PvP to everyone. I feel like it should have been like maybe WB, YSS, and IMFS, because when you're looking at the map, this map is, I'm just gonna say, this map is really stupid for PvP. Like, I'm just glad I'm not in Diplo, because having to deal with that is insane. But each zone like opens up, and you got both zone 2s. And if you want to be teams, you could have probably done like maybe like IMFS, YSS, and Hunt, or NXW, I mean. So NXW, IMFS, but then that leaves IMFS without any fights. And it's kind of, this map is just really weird, like how it's made. So one whole server is going to go without fights, no matter what way you try to do Diplo. Unless you were to do, like I said, WB, YSS, and IMFS. Because then you've got NXW right there. But then again, that leaves Hunt and MFD completely fucked, because they got to fight WB.
Yeah. I mean, one way I almost could have seen it is if they just did like in every other zone, right? So it was, for example, if they did something to the effect of where they maybe did kind of like a 1x1x1. So it was just every other, where,
all right,
and I'm not saying that's the matchup. What I'm saying is that they could have said, like, look, these are the teams we're going to have for the final zone, but we're going to set everyone up with the best zone 2 matchups possible. And,
right.
And then you do it like that. Because the thing for me is if everyone gets zone 2 action, then everyone potentially is in more or less the same boat, because everyone's fighting.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there are some degrees to how hard some might go versus others. Like, I think the fact is that if you're fighting against MFD and Hunt, right, there's the chance that you may not necessarily fight as long. You may not incur as many sevs. You might not have to use as many resources, etc. You just might not be, you might not have to utilize as much compared to if it's, again, like an NTSWB, or if it's YSS, IMFS. But you set it up in a way where, you kind of pick your poison. And I guess you maybe lesser of two evils is a better way of putting it. But you look at like MFD and Hunt, and you say, okay, well, do we put them against NXW 375, or do we put them against 249 for a zone 2 action? And then that way you figure out the rest of it. And then at that point, it's okay, well, let's now set up, if people want to set it up, some zone 3 fights. Or maybe they just set up,
right,
some continued zone 2 fights, or they'll say, no, listen, you guys can invade, and we'll get like some fights going on in zone 3, but you're still kind of guaranteeing everyone the FZ access. And then you say, well, look, we're going to form the teams based on what is going to be the healthiest for the final zone in that case. So, I mean, for me, that's kind of how, if I was to kind of do it in that, and you're trying to kind of get the best of both worlds out of everyone, I kind of look at it like that, because this way you're not locked to saying, well, this is our team going in right now, and we're going to take this team, and it's going to be passively applied to every single zone. We basically kind of create the best situation, and then we basically form the teams based on what the final zone matchup is going to be, but not necessarily limiting it to say, well, that's going to now be applied to zone 2, so now it's going to limit some potential matchups. I mean, again, I guess if you're just kind of looking at trying to get the best out of the situation.
Right, and I was gonna say, like, it's also dependent on like if everybody agrees to that.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody's gonna want that kind of outcome,
Yeah.
and that's where the problem is. Like, if the better, or if one server doesn't agree, like the whole thing is just screwed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And again, I you know, this isn't to say that I think there is kind of an end all be all, you know, best possible scenario, because I think the challenge overall is that nobody was necessarily anticipating or expecting for basically there to be 7 kingdoms in what probably everyone thought
Right.
was going to be 6 kingdoms, and there'd be a solid 6. But let me fast forward a little bit now. So the teams are set. Everyone at this point feels like it's good after Diplo ended. The situation comes down, and you end up getting wind. You hear, like I'm sure others heard, and I'm curious, when you first caught wind of that YSS was opting to go solo, did you find this out from when gun streamed, or were you already kind of aware
Yeah,
of this and it was just kind
but
of an afterthought at that point?
no, funny enough, I was at work and I checked my phone to see Guns go live, and I think the title was like, it cooked, KvK1 is cooked, and I was like, what this about? And then I click on it and I hear that we didn't agree to Diplo and that we're going solo, and I put my phone down. I was like, I'm going back to work. What the hell? What is that?
Yeah.
I was really just like, I'm like, what happened? So when I got home, I watched the whole gun stream. I watched through the entire thing to look at the chats, and then I was just like, yeah, okay, I see who really didn't agree with stuff. And yeah, it was kind of just like, oh man, this is gonna suck. That's all
Yeah.
that went through my mind. Because like, it's not like I'm gonna talk bad about my alliance leader. Like, I would never do that. But
Of course.
I also don't see why no agreement could have been made, and it was just like, so, like, it's this or nothing, you know. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to pairing with IMFS because I have friends over there, but now it's like, okay, well, there are enemies, so I have fun with this KvK. We got no shot at dragon, with it, like, no legitimate shot. There's no way we get dragon. I don't feel, unless for some reason IMFS comes back, there's no way either 3 teams get it, you know, just looking at it, because WB is going to push hella hard. Every other team's going to push, and it's just going to be YSS trying to fight IMFS in zone 3. And I saw Fluffy basically saying that, like, yeah, we're not going to fight them at all the entire season. I was like, wait, what? So that also means IMFS is not going to Dragon Zone, because if their plan is to just fight NXW the whole season, then they're also not getting Dragon. So it's all ruined. Like, everything's ruined.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you know, your your assessment here is, I think, not too far off from, you know, where I was kind of playing it out in, I think, a recent video or two, you know, when just kind of looking at, you know, what literally is the worst case scenario that can play out in this KvK. And,
Right.
you know, I think for me, you know, I very much look at it in that way, which is, you know, if, you know, even in best case, if NTS and IMFS are still allied, and, you know, I don't see anything where it's like, you know, NTS is still allied with YSS, or IMFS is maybe still working with YSS in some kind of a nap. It's just, again, the way,
Right.
it is what I said earlier on stream. It's just the way I kind of view it is that, you know, if you've said you've gone solo and you're going free for all, and you left the team Diplo, or just, you know, opted to just, you know, not negotiate any further, you know, like, that's a pretty clear answer at that point. And, you know,
Right.
I basically have that akin to just, you know, calling an echo at that point, is what I would also refer to it as, you know, for the number of seasons that they had gone solo and done an FFA. Is that, like, that's just how
God, yeah.
that's how I view the team now, is that, like, that's your objective. That's what you're doing now going forward. And if you do that, and we talked through some of the scenarios earlier, I just don't see a situation now where any of those three kingdoms have a shot at making it to Dragon. I personally, I think the best case that the three of you can do now is maybe make it to like the dragon statue, like the dragon, like the inner dragon choke,
Right.
where you're
Yeah.
fighting
That
them,
would be like the only thing.
and maybe, who knows? I mean, again, if everyone's kind of fighting their own individual battles, which is kind of what it feels like, everyone's gonna like be in their own individual lane fighting, and maybe if
Yeah.
everyone's able to overpower their individual lanes, then okay, maybe. But part of me feels like that's a lower percentage chance versus making it there, and that just kind of being the extent of where it's there never really is a chance to do anything kind of more than that, and that's kind of where everyone's kind of, and that's only if all three make it there, because you also have to consider that, I mean, if YSS opts to push into the zone twos and they win the zone twos, which again, if NTS and IMFS don't do anything there, I think that's a given. And then my
Right.
next
Yeah. I feel
assumption,
like that's gonna happen.
and my next assumption is that they're absolutely going to push in to one, if not both, of the zone threes. Like whether they start with IMFS or NTS, they're at least going to do one, if not both. And if they do,
Right.
then that means that the only way out of the situation for NTS and IMFS is either they're strong enough to basically hold back two people pushing them in a sandwich, or they have to outpush NXW and WBA into their zone threes. So, in that,
I honestly feel like we won't go after NTS because the hatred for IMFS at this point within the whole, I guess the whole alliance now is like yeah, fuck them, Pardon my language, but
no, you're fine.
that's how it is. Like everybody's got that mentality of like, yeah, you know what? They don't want to agree to our rules. We don't want to agree to theirs. Like we're gonna attack them in this zone now. It's like okay. I don't feel that way. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have like hatreds or shit with other alliances. I'll never understand that. But I kind of look at it like, all right, well, if we're gonna go after IMFS, that means NTS is gonna be fighting 3 other servers by themselves, realistically, because we're gonna try to get IMFS out of Zone 3, and that's the only way into Dragon Zone, right? In Zone 3. So that means both of us don't make it to Dragon. And if IMFS wanted to, they would have to fight us to even get into Dragon Zone, and then they got to fight WB, who's like already healed, and they got to fight NXW and all them in Dragon Zone. It just doesn't make any it doesn't make any sense when looking at it.
Yeah.
For us to even do that, like we should just make up.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. I am absolutely with you on that front, where I think, it would be great if there was an opportunity for there to be some form of reconciliation, of coming back to the table and just saying like, look, man, we all recognize the situation is not ideal. It is not necessarily anyone's fault that, there's 7 kingdoms in here, that that it opted for this way, that it dictated to a degree, or what the potential options could have been for teams to be formed. Map design still in some areas may not necessarily be ideal, but it's like, we're kind of making the best of the situation here, for everyone involved. Now obviously that's based on how the teams were set initially, that of course just limited one zone, or we should say 2 zone 1s, and the kingdoms there being YSS or YSS and Hun MFD. But yeah, I mean, again, I would love for something to happen. I mean, I don't know what the likelihood, but you did say something earlier that I think that I want to come back to, where you had said that the general feeling now in YSS is that there is a hate or a loathing or a wanting to crush IMFS. Is that kind of a general consensus amongst?
I wouldn't say a lot of members, but I'd say like like among the leadership, and you can just kind of feel it already. Like that's the only team we're probably going to target the whole season. If we don't end up allying them later on,
Yeah.
it's because everybody or Dark went in there and he basically blamed who was it that he blamed? I think he blamed Jason. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of read the chat and I was like, Jason seemed pretty level-headed and he was trying to figure out what we're gonna do and get an agreement of some sort, and he was negotiating. But it seemed like nobody on our side wanted to, except for KT. Like KT had negotiated a bit, but Tomato came in and said it's 300 or nothing, and yeah, that's the part where I'm just like, something definitely could have been agreed upon. I think 450 would have been fine. A lot of IMFS is like 500 or I don't know. 450 would have been the middle ground between 600 and 300. So you would have gone 450, and then whatever the merits are, that's what it is. And if YSS doesn't get the dragon, then kick rocks or tough shit.
Yeah.
That's why you agree on stuff before it even happens, so you don't got to deal with like YSS betrayed IMFS in Dragon Zone for 2 Ambers. You don't got to go through the whole drama, and I mean that would have been an amazing title for me, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
So, and again, I very much feel similar to that, and I talked about this as well when I had read through some of those chats and kind of my view on it. However, okay, so we get, I guess, to the point we're at now, and I guess I am curious on, is there has there at all been any kind of call to action from maybe members internally or people saying, hey, listen, man, we really want to try and get as much PvP out of the season as humanly possible. We don't want the season to kind of be a dud. I mean, does it, I guess, maybe feel like people are really kind of on board with kind of the free for all solo thing? Do some people have reservations, or if they do, maybe no one's kind of coming out publicly and saying that? I mean, is it
Right.
is it kind of more of like, nah, man, like Tomato's our guy, we're ride or die, like this is just what it is. It doesn't matter to us.
Feels like.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay, gotcha. Now I am. Oh no, go ahead.
I haven't seen anybody in YSS publicly come out in chat and saying like, this is bullshit, like you should redo it. Like nobody's called him out, so I feel like everybody was kind of on board with the whole, okay, we're gonna go free for all, let's attack everybody we can.
Yeah. Okay.
Because everybody here wants PvP, and that's the whole point of like playing this game is a PvP. It's not Farmville.
Yeah.
So everybody's excited, I guess. Me, I kind of look at it from the outside like, oh man, we really got screwed.
Yeah. Well, I guess, the way I typically look at it when it comes to kind of kingdom goals and expectations is that, if you're coming out and you're telling people, that, our seasons are kind of, because some kingdoms are like this, where they'll say like, we're dragon or bust. And, or it's, best end of season rewards or bust, or it's final zone or bust, right? To whatever extent.
Yeah.
And obviously that is dependent on the kingdoms and, how they're set up and, how they, what the goals that they set for themselves and their members. Is the way that YSS have they at any point, like before the season started or even before Diplo started, was there ever a view of like, listen, man, or whether that's Tomato or whomever coming out, and maybe you even know this from, I guess you can even compare this with last season prior to the KvK starting, was there ever any point where they said like, look, this is what our goals are, and I guess have those ever been communicated to the membership as far as like, this is what the expectation is for us every season, or maybe the expectation changes on what our goals are for the results that we want per season?
Well, I guess the thing about YSS is they always want dragon, because they always want the like you get a trophy, right, for your alliance or something when you get dragon. So they always want that to like add on to their stats, you know, because they've got the most dragons out of the entire game, like every server. So they're just trying to add to that collection, which I understand. But from one point, it's like you can't ruin a whole KvK just because you want a fucking trophy. Like I feel like I don't even know if they care about ambers because realistically, like you can get a lot of ambers just without the dragon. So it's only 2 more that you're missing out on or that you would get.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
But
someone just said something really interesting in chat. And it's funny because I'm shocked someone said this because I was actually going to talk about this in a video, which is DeCristo said, he says, Phantom, just keep merit trading until you're at 450 mil and then tell Jason deal. You guys would be in the same spot as if you did the 0 handicap deal. And
right.
I want to point this out because the fact is that from what I understand in the team deal, it was like they said merit trading was okay, but that they were going to apply the merit reduction when it came to the total
The
merits.
dragon rewards,
Yeah, for Dragon Wars,
which
but
it's
based on
fair.
total merits, from what I understood. So
Yeah, and that was completely fair.
yeah, and my whole thing about that, and it kind of goes into Phantom's point because I think it is excellent, is that based on what is, and again, I don't know what the merit rankings are right now currently, but from what I saw previously, it very much, I feel like the case can be made where it's like YSS probably could have easily achieved those merits themselves, and maybe and I'm sure more than that. So, but again, but this is such a great point, right? That, like I said, Crystal brings up is that you very well could have, like, they could have agreed to that. Then you guys just could have merit traded your balls off and easily beat whatever the merit reduction number was, and then exceed that, and still be. Now, I guess I'm curious. Do you feel like that could have been a viable option where, like, if Tomato or whomever, right, if they agreed to that and said, okay, like, look, let's negotiate, let's meet somewhere in the middle, say it ends up being 450? Because again, now keep in mind, I don't know what the extent is on how far a kingdom can really take merit trading when it comes to how much can you really get out of it. Like if you go hard and you do it nonstop from zone 1 day 1 all the way up until the final zone, can you get to 1 billion merits? Could you get to 2 billion? Like, I don't know the answer to that question. That would be interesting to find out. I guess you'd have to look at whatever the average merits they're getting per day from trading, and then just multiply that by however many days it takes to get to the final zone,
Well,
and maybe you can get a soft gauge. But do you agree with that sentiment based on what Crystal said? Like, maybe that should have been considered, or do you think that could have been considered on saying, like, yeah, let's take this deal, let's negotiate if it's 450 or whatever, figure that out, and then just merit trade your balls off until final zone?
right, yeah. I do agree with that. And also you could get well over a bill because we're already at 318 million.
Okay. And we're on,
So
and what, it's day 6. It's almost a weekend because I think you guys started on the 8th.
not even a weekend.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So based on that, and I think, let me see here. Where am I? Let me load up.
I feel that would have been the best outcome if we would have just agreed to 450. That definitely that it would have been a good KvK.
Okay.
Like we wouldn't be having this topic right now.
Yeah. Do you feel that some of the hate, the animosity, the maybe community being upset or disappointed, do you feel some of that's unwarranted towards YSS and 357 with just, and again, I'm just talking about kind of optics, right? For what the community has seen so far, for what's been talked about. Do you think some of that is unfair or unwarranted?
I feel like it's unfair to group up like all the members, you know, because like I've already seen like Gun say like none of us chose this. Like if it were up to me, I've already told you what I would have chose, but it's up to my leaders and the leader. And I've seen Tomato catch the most shit out of anybody. He's already been memed the hell out of. But when they talk about YSS, it's not just like they're only talking about the leaders. Like you're talking about the whole alliance. So when people try to drag us in and stuff. It kind of like it's kind of getting to the members, like the hate and stuff. Nobody's really crying about it, but it's just like, you know, damn, we're getting a bunch of flack for something we didn't choose. But I guess that's what comes with, you know, being in an alliance. But I feel like more of the, not the hate, but like the, like, you know, YSS did this. It should be more like YSS leaders did this.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The members didn't fucking do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like saying, you know, the apple doesn't far fall from the tree or something. You're kind of extending
Right.
it to everyone compared to no. And to be fair, I agree there. I do think that's fair. Right. Which is, you know, now it would be different if, for example, let's say leadership took a vote and they let all the members
Right.
vote, right?
Right.
And then all the
We
members
never
voted,
got that.
yeah, in a majority, right? And again, I'm not saying that that should have happened, but if you wanted to make that case and have this kind of general, you know, looping everyone into this category of like YSS did it when really it was more of, hey, this is management's decision. But
Exactly.
I think everyone kind of gets that, even if they might
It's
just
like
say,
it's like if a company chooses to have bad practices, it's like you wouldn't blame the workers of the company. You'd blame the
absolutely,
big people making all the decisions.
absolutely. And so I guess, you know, with that being said, I am, I guess I want to switch gears a little bit here. Maybe come back to this in a sec. You joined up last season. From what I understand, Dark came back and joined up last season.
Yeah.
What was, I guess, is there anything you can tell us there about, you know, him coming back? Maybe, you know, was there any kind of an announcement? Was, you know, was anyone told anything, or was it kind of, hey, he just showed up one day and just started talking, and everyone was like, oh, hey, is this you? And you're from here?
He
And
just fucking showed up.
okay.
I was like, who is? He showed up, and I was taken aback. I'm like, holy crap, is that actually Dark? And he was like, yeah, it's me. I'm like, what the fuck? I thought you quit. You know, I was really just shocked the first day it happened. He just kind of appeared, and then we got the announcement like, oh yeah, Dark is gonna be war leading, and I'm like, oh cool, okay, I've never had that. I've never had Dark war lead for me, so
Yeah.
I was really just more like I'm not really involved with the whole, you know, Dark in his past and
Yeah.
scamming and stuff. Although I did read up on that, and I was like, oh shit, that ain't good. But I never got involved with that, so I don't have any personal beef with them. So when he came in, I wasn't really like, man, fuck this guy, I'm migrating.
Yeah.
I kind of just stayed because I was really interested in how he war led, and then I saw how he did it last season. I really liked it. It wasn't bad, like by any means. A lot of people say his war leading is shit, and I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of harsh. It's not terrible. We did almost beat WB, but it was the activity that was the major issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So
he's not like a bad guy to talk to either.
yeah, and I'll say when I've had maybe one or two, I think, voice conversations with Dark. Not, I don't think one on one, but kind of in like a COD Discord public VC or somewhere else, at least from what I can recall. And even a lot of my text conversations with Dark have never been, you know, egregious or just god awful by any means. And most of the time, it is pretty cordial. And you know, so I guess I'm curious here. Before Dark came, or I guess I'm sorry, because you were there last season and you had been there kind of a full season, but you've played in pay to win with Toxic, which again they were a top kingdom and they were a top PvP fighting alliance for a while. What were some of maybe the takeaways that you had from being in other kind of war leading VCs for any of the other kingdoms, or at least just seasons you've been a part of, compared to last season when Dark was war leading? Like, what were some takeaways that you found from Dark from his war leading during your time last season being in VCs there?
Well, he definitely likes to yell, which was one thing where I was like, damn, I gotta mute this guy. I had to turn him down. I really did. It was him and KvK that were leading. They were war leading like the whole season. I'm like, oh god, I'm having the Vietnamese dude yelling in my ear, and then I got Dark, who's like, blink, 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 like he's just shouting it the whole time, all season. I'm like, oh bro, this is not. I just kind of sat there. I got a headache after 2 hours of fighting. I was like, all right, I'll go take a Tylenol. But I mean, his war leading versus what Toxic never did any war leading. It was mostly his R4s like Sleepy.
Okay.
I would grant like most of the war leading to Sleepy. So he would be in voice chat and he'd very calmly be like, "We need people over here. We need infantry up in the front." And you know, I feel like I like Sleepy's war leading a little more.
Okay.
But you know, it's just because being yelled at for like hours is kind of like, okay, like, all right, bro, calm down. We're not playing Call of Duty. It's freaking. This is like, it's just a PvP game with fantasy. Like, this isn't a shooter. He's basically shouting in my ear like we're in war, like actual war. Like I've got a gun with me, and like that's how he'd be yelling, like he's my military sergeant.
So, but I got you. So just taking it, you know, maybe a bit more serious on that front.
Yeah, more intensity. I'd say intensity.
Okay.
Definitely more like treating it like it's life or death. Also, I saw Napoleon say we almost beat WB is a crazy statement.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of did. It was just I want to say
Go change it.
We were about like maybe 1 or 2 flags from pushing them off of the dragon itself, and the only reason we didn't get that is because everybody had logged off, and we placed a bastion at the bottom so they couldn't build up on the bottom right. I don't even know if I live streamed it so I can have like reference, but I'm sure somebody did. And we almost had him. We really did almost have him. It was just everybody kind of thought like, okay, well, I don't got to fight anymore because all the big guys are online, so they're gonna fight the entire time. But it's like, there's stamina, people run out of stamina and shit, and then people went offline for bed because they had work. I think Dragon Zone opened on a freaking Thursday, so it's like, bro, I had to go to bed at 10. I couldn't stay up any longer. And then I remember I went to bed and I woke up and we were basically kicked off of the Dragon. That was my point of view.
Oh, geez.
Like, oh, damn.
Wow. So, given, and I guess I am curious, right? Since outside of Dark's war leading, how? Because again, I know you said you kind of wanted to give it a chance, so that you go with kind of any biases, if you will. Given
Right.
Dark's been back for a little while now, how I guess what's been your kind of assessment of his participation, his engagement, maybe how he kind of treats members. I guess just maybe even if you had any interactions, like how has it been for you so far? Kind of with it, I guess with him there for one season so far, right? Going into the second.
I'd say he treats members pretty good. Like he hasn't really disrespected anybody, or it seems like he's got a lot of like people that he knows already that are in here, that he's friends with. So it's been pretty fun to get to know everybody on voice chat. And you can definitely tell the difference for sure when he's not war leading versus when it's whoever else in YSS is war leading, because we had a mock war and we beat the shit out of the other team that didn't have Dark. So I was like, I don't know. It's kind of telling. Like you could kind of see like if we didn't have Dark, how it would go. I'm gonna post that mock war video soon.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I gotta edit it. It's like 2 hours long, so I have to cut it down.
Gotcha. So how do you feel as far as, because again, I say some people will respond to that. Like some people will actually have a good response to people that are maybe a little bit more intense, or they bring a higher level of intensity versus maybe kind of more of a lower or calmer demeanor, if you will, when it comes to kind of issuing orders, actions. And again, I think, to be fair, I kind of look back on, situations where, we look at like old TFS and, some of the comms that I had the chance to go and listen into with them. I had posted, I think, 1 or 2 of these where I had actually recorded Jason doing war comms. And I think like one of the first ever like war comm videos that was done where I had a chance to go in and listen in with TFS. And I remember Jason just being, again, very high intensity is how I would describe. And again, I think some people respond to that. I think there are a group of people out there who kind of like the high intensity. They maybe associate that a little bit more with a higher level of seriousness. or you know
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
we're kind of really getting into it. We're kind of almost in a zone, or in our own kind of zone, if you will. But I guess all in all, as again, I feel like I've for excuse me, for the most part, pretty much have gone over, I think, everything I've at least been really interested on. I am curious though, for anyone listening in chat, if you guys have any questions for Phantom, please go ahead and type those out, and I'll try and get some of those out before we let him go. I
Just not any questions where I have to talk bad about my alliance leader.
No, of
I
course,
don't
of course, of course, yeah, yeah.
want
Respectful questions, if we can,
to.
you
Right.
heathens.
If I ever end up like leaving or whatever, I can give my opinion on that, but not right now.
Yeah, no, 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 of course. So, what would you say, from your perspective, is absolute best case? Like, what do you think would be a win for you guys? Like, whether it's
Uh,
realistically or your hopes, what do you think
if
for YSS for 375 would be like the best case that you guys can get out of the season at the moment?
for right now, like currently being free for all, or just hypothetical if stuff had actually worked out.
Well, I'll take well, yeah, I'll take the free for all one first. Like, as far as like what do you
Free for
think
all.
would make this season, not a loss, not a dud, but like we kind of lived up to our name, or at least the decision that we made.
Honestly, I don't think there's anything because every other alliance seems dead set in basically haha YSS gets no fights, and it's like I feel like we're pretty screwed in the situation. We can't make anything out of it. Um, there's nothing else to do other than farm in zone 2. Like
Yeah,
basically that's what I'm going to be doing all season. I guess is like merit trading, and if we end up not mending the bridge with IMFS, I think the season is already over. Like there's no point in anything because Diplo got screwed and the leaders won't agree because I think it's a little bit of an ego thing where it's like I've made this decision and now oh shit I can't go back on it, or I look like a
mm,
I look like a pussy,
yeah,
in other words. Like and that's understandable, but also it's like the whole season is suffering because of that.
yeah.
But hypothetically, like if stuff were to go the right way, I feel like we had a really good chance of beating WB and their team.
Okay.
If we had IMFS with us. Like having IMFS with us is like the biggest thing. Like let's say it's just us and NTS, or it would be just us and IMFS, like just having two, right? It wouldn't work because yet again, that's like the biggest handicap is a 2v3, and we could just get sandwiched. One team could just get sandwiched.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work out. Like no matter which way we try to go, I feel if we don't get everybody on board again, yeah, the season's over.
Yeah.
WB got a free dragon, so GG's to them.
I mean, yeah. DeCristo says, so his question is, how is the overall morale in the alliance
Overall
right now, you
morale?
would say?
Oh, I mean, that's a good question. Actually, I don't even. I guess everybody is kind of just trying to make the best of a shitty situation. I haven't really seen anybody talk bad, so I can't say that our morale is terrible. But it's like everybody knows this is a farming season. That's all this is. That's all we're gonna be doing. So I would guess the morale is like log in, send mana farmers, and log out and play other games at this point. That's how it is. Or at least that's what I've been seeing. Like that's all anybody's doing. They log in. I see farmers go out and then they log off.
Just going to log back into WoW
I see.
or RuneScape.
I see. Ryuko said IMFS is open to it, but it's like unless Tomato decides, then I don't think anything will happen.
Yeah.
It's like IMF is open to it, but until our leadership decides, like, okay, we don't want the KvK to be screwed for everyone. Let's team up with them and just suck it up.
Yeah.
Like our deal. I don't know if like IMF. I don't know if IMFS is like that or not, but they could totally be like, well, if you want to come back to the table, now we're gonna make it even harder. Now we're gonna make it 650 fuckers because
Yeah.
you put us through all this shit, you know.
It's double now.
I don't
Now it's
think I don't
900 mil.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's not. I don't think they would do that, but
Yeah, I don't think so.
that would be hella funny though.
Yeah.
That would be hella funny. They like we come back to the table and they're like, well, because you put us through all that.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, that'll be that. I mean, that would be something. Yeah, that would be something.
Yeah, that's my opinion on it. Unless you get our leaders, there ain't no way. Like, I don't think anybody can convince them. I could talk to Tomato like all day, and I don't know if he'd go back on it or not just because of me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to kind of get. I will say, man, one of the things that I really wish they would have done, and for me, part of me feels like this is, and I talked about this in my video too as well, but part of me feels like part of what kind of broke down some of those negotiations or just didn't make them go as fluid as they could have is that nobody at any point from what I had seen, based on the screenshots that were made public and from what I saw, nobody posted any kind of like referencing or supportive evidence for like the numbers that were being thrown out there to really make a full case of it.
That's a good point.
And I even said in the video I think I did yesterday, the day before, when I was reading through the chats that Guns had shown from the EIS chat that was leaked, right, was even I actually gave Dark a shout out there because for the first time throughout all of the chats that have been shared, his post was the first time I ever saw someone reference any kind of historical merit numbers from a previous KvK based on what was able to be produced or accumulated in the final zone and or I think any other zone that he touched on in his brief post, even though it didn't go into the level of detail that it would have needed to, in my opinion. It at least still was something that someone said that sounded relevant versus what at least had been posted and typed out up until that point. And part of me just feels like that was such a big factor because to me, part of me almost feels like playing the situation out of my head, Tomato on one side, Jason on the other side, Jason saying, hey, we need a merit reduction. Tomato saying, it's unprecedented. Why do we need a merit reduction? And it's just, it's almost like they're sending subject lines to each other. Like they're sending emails to each other, but there's only subject lines. There's no body. There's no message body that's really filling out and helping both sides to really understand why this is being suggested and how people arrived at these numbers so everyone can have a better idea to move forward. Exactly. That was my view on what I felt was a big
there's
part.
No numbers of like looking at the players and how realistically like if they could get more merit than what they were being asked.
Yeah.
There's no charts there. All I saw was just people throwing out 600, 500, and then Tomatoes like 300. And then it's like, okay, IMFS thought 300 was too low. So I don't know, you can increase it. The thing is like Tomato didn't try to counter offer at all. Yeah. Like normally when it comes to like negotiating, you fucking negotiate, but there was no negotiation. It was like either do 300 or we're not going to ally. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't agree to it and we're free for all. Fuck you. Now your season's over. Like, okay, cool. All right. Like, what's IMF to do at that point? You can either agree with it and then YSS probably because of all the healing that we have and all the time that we're just not doing shit in every zone. Like we've got a lot of elixir. So it's just, we could come in there and just absolutely slam any team we wanted to because we're full health.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, if anybody was being reasonable, you just look at it and be like, okay, we'll take the hit on the chin. And we'll go, 500 or 450. Like we won't do 600 because you don't have numbers to back it up. But none of that happened. Like, I don't know what the fuck. None of that happened.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Looking on the outside, it was just it's such a simple, you could just say fucking yes and it would all be fine. And now, like, I guarantee IMFS is just going to absolutely starve us. Like, I would be surprised if they even push into Zone 3 and try to defend it, because they also basically said, yeah, Dragon is pointless at this point, because
Yeah.
it would be only them and NTS. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get on the kick list after that. I mean, to be honest, you got to be true to yourself. It don't matter what the fuck happens. You can't just lie and cope and shit. Can't be one of those people that's like, yeah, YSS is the best, you know? We're gonna go into Dragon Zone whether IMFS likes it or not. And we're gonna get Dragon. You know, it's like we got 3 teams against us. And who's to stop IMFS from backstabbing in Zone 3? Like, they could all of a sudden, we're in Dragon Zone, and all of a sudden here comes IMFS right behind us, and then we're pinched between, that would be 4 teams now. You know, it don't, no matter what way you look at it, it's all screwed.
So, and I mean, I think, you know, I'll say, you know, based on what I've heard so far from you, I mean, a lot of it just sounds, you know, rational and logical and objectively sound, you know, even regardless of you being in YSS or not. You know, it's not like you're sitting here, you know, talking shit about Phantom or excuse me, about Tomato or anyone else. You know, you haven't said anything to that degree. It's just more of, you know, let's assess and analyze the actions that have been done and consider whether or not, you know, was this truly in the best interest of, you know, what the potential for what the KvK could have been. And I think all of that has been fair. I mean, you know, again, for myself, you know, I like to believe that, you know, my unique position is pretty unbiased in the sense of I don't have any allegiances or loyalties to any kingdoms or alliances. And I very much truly believe that, you know, I can look at things in a very kind of fair and pragmatic way where, you know, I also account and look at a lot of things that are data based, and, you know, you can't really have any biases in data. I mean, sure, maybe you can manipulate data in some ways to maybe make it look biased, but, you know, that's not really what I think I do. And I'm sure other people that are more purists at heart, when they look at it from that angle. And even I look at the YSS situation and I say to myself, yeah, like, does it suck that these things happened? And, you know, what I touched on when it came to, you know, what I felt really would have helped the team conversations there on providing some of that kind of data referencing information to support any kind of merit numbers that are being thrown out there for merit reduction recommendations, I think very much would have helped those conversations between Jason, Tomato, and even Mark, just kind of looking from the outside in as NTS. And I think that would have drastically, I think that very much would have helped. But I don't also say in the same breath that, you know, Tomato's the worst, most awful, you know, R5 ever, and he ruined the entire KvK. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go as far as saying that. I would just say that, and I agree on your part, right, where you said, you know, because, and other people have pointed this out as well, but, you know, talking about the negotiation part, where it, just because someone puts something out there doesn't mean that you can't renegotiate. It doesn't mean that it's an end all be all, and it has to essentially be an ultimatum. And for me, looking objectively at the situation, that to me is kind of how it looked when Tomato put the number out there, and Jason was still willing to negotiate and have a conversation. But it felt like, at least from the YSS side with Tomato, it was kind of like, you know, and maybe he just felt really strongly about it, saying, hey, look, this is my number. This is where I'm at. We just can't go any lower. There's nothing else to negotiate. And that's just the hill that, you know, he wanted to kind of stand on, or I don't want to say die on, but the hill he wanted to stand on. And, you know, and maybe that's just what it came down to. However, I agree though, in the sense of, it's like, you know, look, you can still renegotiate. You can still have conversations I think part of, like I said, what really stagnated the conversation was that there just wasn't any supporting data that provided it. And it just felt like, well, he's throwing out his number. If we're not going to agree and no one's willing to, and both sides aren't willing to compromise, then it kind of just feels like that's the end all be all. Like, it could have been, like, the whole conversation could have ended in a couple posts. You know, one person says something, the other person says something. One person says we're not going to renegotiate. One person says they're open to renegotiating. And then the third message from the person who doesn't want to renegotiate is okay. Well, we're done here now. You know, it's all over
Exactly.
in 60 seconds at that point. And yeah, but it goes back to what I was saying, where like I think everything you've said so far, to me at least, sounds objectively fair. Uh,
Yeah,
and
and the thing is, like, when it comes to Tomato, I'm not gonna like, it's his decision at the end
yeah,
of it, and I'm not gonna be like, well, it should have been this way. You know, I'll agree with it, but I do give my opinion on that. The KvK is like just gonna be screwed now, you know, and his decision wasn't the best in what I feel could have been and should have been chosen. Like there could have been like a server vote, like, okay, what do you guys feel about this deduction? Or should I ask for lower? You know, that like us as members didn't get talked to at all. And that was my biggest, I guess that was my biggest gripe, because like when I've been in other alliances, yeah, they have done like a vote for all the members so that we're on the same
real
page.
quick, let me ask you this, because to me, I feel like this is the nail in the coffin for me. Do you feel
Yeah.
that if Tomato would have put it to a vote and asked everyone in the alliance, "Hey, listen, are you all okay with us taking a 450 mil merit reduction to our total merit score, um, and then we'll just merit trade our balls off until we get a chance to fight"? Do you feel like that vote would have went in the majority of YSS players saying, "Yeah, we'll take that, and we'll still stay on the team," compared to if the other option was presented to go solo?
Oh, for sure. I
Okay.
feel like everybody would have been like, yeah, because we all have like the confidence that we're all great fighters and we can go out there in Dragon Zone and make it last for a long ass time. Unless one side decides to give up, I feel like Dragon Zone probably would have went on for at least a good week, you know, and that's a long time to get a lot of merits, because like each zone opening is like a week long. So if Dragon Zone would have lasted, let's say, 7 days, for sure, like we could have gotten enough merit, you know, to offset the negative.
I gotcha.
And I don't feel like anybody would have disagreed either.
Okay.
But we never got that option.
Yeah. And I also say this, in on the opposite side of looking at it, right, which is kind of on the side of leadership, is that it really obviously is up to them on if they want to include anyone else for a vote, outside of their management or however they're running. If it's like a high-low council, if it's just, the R5 or an R6 Suedo is just kind of the final decision maker, right? So it's not as though they necessarily have to come to the players to ask about a vote. However, I at least think it's nice to be able to hear from members that are there, because I think it at least allows us a little bit of an insight into those individuals and what's going through their minds, especially because what I often find is that players will talk to other players. And I'm sure you've probably have had conversations with other players in the alliance about the situation, whether that's in DMs or maybe just somewhere else on Discord, or not necessarily in alliance chat, because I've seen this happen
Yeah.
countless times. And I'm sure other players outside of you have talked to other players as well. So I'm sure a number of people have shared their feelings about this, even if it's not directly or in a public fashion in something like an alliance chat. But for me, that's the thing I'm really curious about, is almost like how other people feel about it. That was one of my ideas, because I wanted to actually go and reach out to um, a bunch of YSS players. I wanted to, and I'm probably still going to do it at some point. But basically, what my plan was is I wanted to like DM everyone that's just like a non-management person, and just say like, look, I'm just doing like an anonymous poll. I'm not going to name any names, but if you write something to me, I might include it in a video, or maybe stream it, but I'd keep you anonymous, and I would just post whatever, I would just say whatever you write to me. And
I'm not really sure any of them would have done that though.
yeah. But yeah, and but see, that's the thing though, is because I've done this before and I can't remember what kingdom or alliance I did it in, and I actually got like a good amount of people that would I actually got a good amount of people that responded to me from like that alliance, and they were just players, and I was just kind of asking them for feedback on like a situation that had played out. and a good amount of them shared their feedback with me. And of course, it was all anonymous. I didn't name any names, but I kind of read what the feedback was, and so yeah, so we'll see. I always say I need enough time to do that, of course, but I know that was one thing I was curious on doing. But obviously, even just you coming on Phantom has been great. Oh look, the homie Jay Geezy's in the house here.
Oh, what's up, Jason?
Yeah, he says, Jason, he says, we'll say one thing. We are still willing to speak, but no one has reached out to us about it. But there has to be the want to negotiate from their side, not just to take it or leave it. And I think that's fair, right? I mean, we were just talking about that, where, it's very difficult to do diplomacy conversations with one side or any side approaching it as they're only dishing out ultimatums, right? And it's my way or the highway, because that makes it very difficult for anything to get done. And
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, you're hearing it right now from Jason. And again, I know he's already said this, so I appreciate Jason saying it again here in the chat on stream. Is and sometimes it can be out of sight, out of mind, right? Sometimes if you don't hear about it for a while, or like a week passes or something, sometimes people think it's an afterthought. But I know the one thing so far that Jason has been pretty, at least seemingly consistent on, is him saying it multiple times that, like, look, IMFS and them are open to it, but they just got to come back. And sometimes you just need that olive. Sometimes you need that olive branch, right, to be extended. And sometimes you need someone to be the first one to extend their hand, to extend that goodwill, and to kind of put it out there first. So, and I will say, man, I mean, I do think, for me, huge props to Jason and to IMF for IMFS for being willing to consistently put that out there and just say, like, look, man, the option's still there. No one's going to be able to sit there and say that, they weren't willing to work with anyone, for that matter, at least.
Sorry to interject.
No, go
I
ahead.
just saw Tomato put up a thing on on the Lions chat. It's literally, yeah. So he said, we gave up 300 mil. They disagree, and they gave out 600 mil, but we have to negotiate on the number that's not based on anything. Which I agree with Tomato on that. Like, and you and I were literally just saying that the number is based off of nothing.
Yeah.
There's no stats. There's nothing. So it's like, how are you going to throw out such a high number? Dark said that with their KvK against what is Echo, right?
Yeah.
How they he threw out some numbers too, that it was lower. So it's like, you can't just throw out such a high ball number and then not have any data to back up the offer.
Yeah.
So I will agree with that, like 100%. It's, and me coming, if I was in leadership, I would have just asked him, like, do you guys have any any stats to like back up why it should be 600 mil? Because it doesn't make any sense throwing out such a high number and then not giving us anything. Like, it's either, yeah, we agree, or like, you could negotiate it down from that, but it's still like, it would be 500 mil. And then there's still no number to show if we're going to give 500 mil. And then, yeah, it's all based off of Dragon Zone 2 for us, because that's the only zone that we have where there's actual PvP.
Yeah.
And other KvKs I've been in, Dragon Zone lasts maybe a maximum of like 4 days. Like, a lot of people give up after 4 days, because it's just 4 days straight of like, you get off of the weekend, you go into like Monday, Tuesday. By the time Wednesday comes, it's like, okay, guys, you get the announcement from your leader that, oh, the KvK is over. We're not going to push Dragon, or hey, we won Dragon. So it all depends on like the timing of the KvK, I guess. And it just so happens this one is happening on a weekend. So it's like, Dragon Zone opens on what, Saturday, I think?
Mm.
I have a calendar somewhere. Hold on.
Yeah, let me see. It's the 5th. So whatever the 5th is, Friday. Well, Friday for me.
Oh yeah, it opens on a Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got the whole weekend to fight, right? And then it's like, by the time Monday or Tuesday comes around, like, people have jobs. Everybody playing this game has a fucking job. So you got everybody logging off to go work, and it's at different times. So then they come back in, and then they fight, in Dragon Zone. But it just depends how many people decided to call off that one Monday. How many people chose to take the entire week off, or took off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday
Yeah.
to play a mobile game. Like, you can't ask that of people. That's crazy. So I mean, sometimes it's a little different if, like, you know, the entire alliance decides, like, okay, all of us can call off this one day specifically. Like, I don't know. For me, I work a pretty demanding job, like, and I work 60 hours a week, so I don't have much time to even be on the game. So when I am on the game, like, my time is valuable.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got to be fighting for a purpose.
Yeah.
You know,
No, absolutely.
a lot of people are just going to log off if they hear we have no chance of Dragon Zone.
Yeah. Well, let me see here. Cramo says, also BN what Phantom was saying earlier about YSS members to vote on it. Jason has put big decisions to a vote from Alliance members many times. Yeah, no, I've heard. Let me see. Jake Easy says, the KvK against Echo EIS won by 1 billion merits, and this has that in the back of that, which is why I chose a number that's lower than that. So I think my example there that I was saying, Jason, would have been like, and I'll give you an example like on how I would have put it, right? Like if I was going to come in, I would have said something to the extent of, hey, here's a similar situation that played out whatever number of seasons ago, where you had a 3v3 setup, one kingdom from each side, did not see any action until the final zone. This is the amount of merits that they accumulated, whether it's throughout or if you say that they accumulated in zone 1, zone 2 up until the final zone, or saying, hey, this is, like, and then here's the amount of merits they accumulated in the final zone. Something to that effect is like how I would have approached it, and just making it, and what I mean by that is just making it very clear. Now maybe that was said, again, I don't know, right? Maybe it was in other chats or maybe in DMs or something to that extent, right? Again, keep in mind I'm only going off of what I've seen publicly. But that's what I'm saying, is that if I was going to approach it that way, I would have detailed that out, along with what you said as well on, I think, the second message. He says also, for an average player count of 200 players, 3 mil merits with full elixir saved and RSS saved shouldn't be much, considering you should have more than 3 mil elixir stocked at that point. And I mean, I think that's a good point as well, because we looked at what the YSS merits were, at least from last season in G2. And I think there was like 185 or 190 people that had over, I think it was like 5 or 6 mil merits, or maybe it was over 10 mil. So it was something like that. I showed it off when we did one of the previous streams. So yeah, as far as looking at it from that perspective, you would imagine that if they're getting a lot of potential fights, that should be kind of easily attainable. My whole thing is just sometimes you have to, and this is what, again, I know I was saying as well earlier here, is that sometimes you have to spoon feed the information to people, and I think that's what I'm saying. I'm not you. I don't track every KvK merit race. Listen, punk. What I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say is that I think that would have made it easier for, and keep in mind, I'm not saying you have to track everything. What I'm saying is that if you're going to reference something, or if something is going to be referenced, at least give a starting point to the other person. Because sometimes, and I'm sure you can agree to this, Jay, sometimes you got to spoon feed information to people. You have to, I don't want to say dumb it down to make it seem like, you're having to lower your conversational intellectual speech to their level, but more of that, you have to make it, it's almost like so clear, so crystal clear to people that they don't have to ask questions. They don't have to go and do their own research. Like, you've kind of done everything for them. So it's indisputable at this point that what you're saying, is justified and it's accurate. And that's mainly where I'm coming from on that, is because part of me just feels like that would have helped that conversation from Tomato's perspective, based on what I saw, based on how it transpired and what I saw transpired. And I'm not sitting here saying that you came in with bad intentions, because just like I don't think Tomato came in with bad intentions, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again,
everybody wanted this to work out pretty much.
Absolutely. And that's mainly what I'm saying, is that maybe there was just a little bit of information or a little bit of supporting context or evidence that just could have been there, like you said, and maybe you told him about the EIS thing. I don't know if that was mentioned, of course, because I can only go off of what I saw. But even something like that, which you just pointed out, I feel like if that was said, maybe that would have helped a little bit too as well. And again, maybe and if what if what Mystic is saying is accurate, then maybe that actually would have helped. What you just said with the announcement that you said the Tomato just put out on like the numbers. To me, it sounds like that's hook, line, and sinker. Like that potentially would have. And again, I understand if he's making the announcement, he's saying it after the fact because a number of people, including myself, have already said this. But if that is true, from what Tomato's saying, maybe that would have helped. And keep in mind, maybe it still would help, right? Maybe still something could come out of that.
What De Cristo said is kind of funny. So when you have 50% of it when we're not even in zone 2, so this has been going on for like 6 days, right?
Yeah.
And we're at 300. So right? So I guarantee you, when Dragon Zone is like over and there's like a set thing, or like if WB wins, or let's say our side wins, where if we would have agreed to a 600 mil cap, if the fighting just stopped, like that's it, that's where the merits stop, right there. We got to stop merit trading. There's no merit trading going on, obviously, when Dragon Zone opens. So if we've only gotten like 300 mil in a week of just straight up everybody merit trading, like how do you expect us to reach 600 if Dragon Zone doesn't last a week or more?
Yeah.
And that's us merit trading with like everyone. Like everybody's got their own like partner pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is that, because I don't think that they said there was a cap from what I saw. I don't think I saw them say something to the effect of,
like
once you hit a certain like once you hit a merit
decrease.
number, you have to stop gaining merits. I think they said that merit trading was fine. They just basically wanted a number that was taken off the top for whatever the total was going to be.
For that, I meant like when you're merit trading, like when Dragon Zone opened, you'd stop merit trading.
Oh yeah, agreed.
And then you'd start fighting, and whatever merits come out of Dragon Zone is what you would eventually have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in YSS's case, right? Maybe there is the chance they might get some action in Zone 3 under the if they still were teamed up with them, right? There's the possibility.
It would really rely on NXW beating the shit out of IMFS to the point where they pushed him out of Zone 2. I don't know. I feel like it might stalemate in Zone 2. I don't know if they're gonna force IMFS all the way back, because IMFS is a big team, like, and so is NXW.
Yeah.
So it would really depend on like IMFS would have to play really, really bad in Zone 2 for there to be a possibility of YSS coming in and helping them in Zone 3.
Yeah.
But where I thought we could have helped, and I said it in my video, if we teamed up, so like we were going to, I feel like we would have had fights against WB in Zone 3, because I'm not really sure about NTS on how strong they are in WB. WB, I fought them last season. They just throw nothing but infantry. It's just infantry nonstop. I don't know where or how they don't run out of stamina, but it's so much infantry at one time. And I'm like, dude, like when we fought them last season, I don't know if NTS has fought WB before, because I haven't really kept up with like top KvKs. But I do feel like WB would have pushed through Pass 4 into the Zone 3, and YSS could have came in through Pass 4 at the bottom for our Zone 2 on NTS's side, and we could have helped NTS over there, like, because you can't really tell me that if WB was going to be trying to powerhouse their way through, that they wouldn't take the opportunity to knock NTS out of Dragon Zone completely before it even opens. So I feel like we would have had PvP there, but now it's like Zone 3 could have definitely been where we got some PvP fights.
Yeah. I mean, at least at the earliest. But again, like you said, that is hugely dependent on WB completely outpushing NTS, and then the same thing with NXW completely outpushing IMFS in their respective zone 2s to then get access to the zone 3, which then not only that, but they would then have to push the pass and then break the pass defense as well. So it's like it's really two steps, right, that NXW would have to take to get into the zone 3, and the same can be said about WB as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could make the argument it is a somewhat of a tall order, right, to get to that point where YSS could potentially get some early PvP in either one or both of the zone 3s. So
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, listen, to round things out, because I know it's getting late, I got to go put my kiddos to bed here in a bit. But I think to me, man, the one thing I would say, and like I really liked some of the stuff that Jason had just said there. Part of me almost feels like, you know, if if the merit reduction thing is being asked for, just support the merit reduction thing. Say this is why we feel the number should be the case. Which to be fair, I feel like if you're going to say that, you either like again, and I talked about this on how I would do it. I would look at a previous KvK or two that maybe had a similar situation that happened, and look at what were the total merits that the fighting alliances were able to get going in, and or sorry, if there was a similar situation, right, of a kingdom or a zone that didn't get any action, right, versus the other two that did get actions, and then maybe looking at just some other KvK1s, right, just for some other reference points, and looking at what was the average merits that were accumulated by kingdoms that were around similar power and similar strengths to YSS, IMFS, NTS, and any others, right, and then you can also look at like whatever maybe the average player merit production would have been in some of those seasons as well. I mean, I guess the way I kind of see it is that you at least have to draw that number from something and just make it clear, like, hey, this is what we're seeing from previous seasons. This is why we feel this number is appropriate. And then, if it's just because, again, I will say this. If you're going to decide, if you're trying to decide end of season awards before the season starts, then if you're going to go through that trouble of doing all that, or not the trouble, but if you're trying to decide all that, I should say, before the season starts, you really just, I feel, you really have to just make it kind of bulletproof in your presentation for why you're saying, hey, this is the number we're putting out. This is why we're putting it out. And then if you stay in line with, well, we're not going to tell you to stop, so to speak, right? You can, as far as on the merit trading, right? Like that's going to be okay for everyone to do. And it's just a matter of we just want this to be taken off the top. I can understand why IMFS and NTS would ask for it, given that they are going to be fighting in Zone 2 and most likely possibly in Zone 3 as well, whether it's theirs or their opponents. And you're looking back at YSS and they're just chilling, kind of fully healed. And my argument is that because YSS is most likely going to be fully healed when they get a chance to fight against the 4 other kingdoms versus the fully healed IMFS and NTS fighting against doing a one-on-one and then potentially a one-on-two, they're not having the opportunity to fight against as many other kingdoms and a total amount of overall players right in a zone such as the FC. So I get it from that perspective. My whole thing is I just feel like just support that, and I feel like if you make it make sense, it doesn't matter who you're talking to, right? I mean, in a lot of these cases, if not hopefully most of them, right, the numbers aren't lying. They're just helping you tell the story and paint a clearer picture.
Yeah. One thing I will say is that IMFS, the R4s keep saying to come back and negotiate and shit, but I feel like it's already too far past that now, because there's already been so many insults thrown at YSS from not only like the entire kingdom, but or KvK, I mean, but IMFS is also just like, you got guns and Fluffy going on there and calling us inactive, and there's just a bunch of people trash talking us. So I don't know. It's like also the Diplo chat kind of got leaked, which is not a big deal, but it's also like at what came after that. After that, everybody started blaming Dark, and Dark wasn't even in there.
Yeah.
Dark's not even in those Diplo chats. I found that funny when they said Dark ruined it. I'm like, what do you mean? He wasn't there. I watched the same live stream everybody else did. Where are we getting Darks in there?
Yeah. And
it just didn't make sense.
Yeah. And I'll say, man, like on that front with the Dark thing, I did say something similar, which is that, we don't know, at least from us, right, that are on the outside looking in, we don't know what level of influence or what level of access that Dark had or that he put out to any extent.
Like talking behind the scenes kind of thing. I honestly, from my point of view and from what I heard in here, he didn't have any say in it. He actually asked Tomato not to be included.
Yeah.
Because he knew that it would like get, Jason and shit. They got like their own beef.
Yeah. And I saw that. I saw that was mentioned. I think the question is more of, for example, did Dark and Tomato have any like DMs that were going on at this time, right? Was there any conversations like that or amongst any other Diplo people? The question for that, right? Those are the questions that I don't think we necessarily know or have the answer to. And it's not to say that it was happening or it wasn't happening, but it's just the fact is no one knows. And in the same breath, right, we can only go off of what has been said publicly and the fact that, Dark said he wasn't involved, and even though we know that he was privy and he knew what was going on. But I made the same case and argument, which is, who's to say that there wasn't other Diplo leads or R5s that were sharing Diplo chats for people that weren't in there, right, with other members of management, which I'm sure was happening as well. So yeah, it's just it's a lot of gray area, I will say, as it kind of comes to some of those. But anyways, let me go ahead and wrap things up here because it is getting a little late for me and my kiddos. Maybe we can continue this another day, but I at least want to say, Mystic, to you, this is, I think, my first time talking to you in VC, and actually, I think our first time chatting as well.
First time ever.
Yeah, and again, I really appreciate the time, man. You coming on and kind of sharing, being pretty candid with us, and sharing your views and perspective coming from YSS, in a respectable manner, without any kind of digs or insults or attacks on YSS or Tomato, and just trying to be as fair and objective in your assessment as possible, and really giving us some insight, man. So I really appreciate the time and you coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was great being here.
Yeah, man. Well, all right, let me let you go. I appreciate it, man. I will leave you to it.
All right, you have a good one.
You too, man. Take care.